you were able to observe the surface in earthshine to some degree, but the attitude of the spacecraft, since it went inertial at the terminator, it had to remain relatively fixed. During the IMU alignment series, the windows 2 and 4, and if when you go inertial to the terminator, you hold it for any length of time, you're going to be pitched up away from the ground at 3 degrees a minute. So by the time we got, say, to Copernicus, we were the x-axis of the spacecraft, we were heads down, x-axis was probably 20 or so degrees above the horizon, which eliminated those windows for ground observations. We found that in turning the lights down in the spacecraft, that really interfered with the operational requirements we had, so initially there was not too much observation made of the lunar surface in earthshine. And I'd like to paint a picture of me in the left-hand seat with a considerable amount of camera gear around, floating kind of like a swarm of bees around a honeypot. One of the problems I had then and any time, particularly when trying to use things like filters and spot meters, it was very difficult to keep them in the near vicinity of me. Second Rev was able to hit about all of the targets up to about 165 degrees east longitude with the 250 millimeter lens as planned. Frankly, the map on the back side was about as good as advertised. I think it had been advertised at plus or minus 10 degrees, and with the limited view I had from the spacecraft and the distortion of the various crater shapes that were there, and the fact that they weren't at the latitude and longitude that we had expected, and I'm not complaining here, I think it was just the real world. The map was as good as it could be. I did find it difficult to, and in fact impossible, to recognize targets that were out near the horizon. So the technique used there was that at the time when we were abeam of these targets, the camera was pointed out and picture taken. Sometimes 2 pictures just to make sure you had some overlap. We had a photo log, and I guess historically these logs are carried on flights, and about equally historically they come back about as empty as mine did. The photo guys never tell you this before flight because they always hope that maybe somebody will use them. But all I can say is that with the experience of one flight behind me, I guess that makes me an expert in not being able to record data. That's just about the situation. If you, even with a more sedate photographic plan than the one we had, it is very difficult to make written records of what you've done. We spent the next several revolutions in a spacecraft attitude that during the day side was generally flying around with your nose in the air about 10 or 20 degrees, and this was a very poor attitude for observation, so no real attempt was made at this stage of the game. At this time we were, the navigator was doing one of the prime operational jobs of landmark tracking, and at the same time he was exposing 16 millimeter film through the section of the lunar surface. And I suppose most of you have probably seen some of that. About the time we were to start on the convergent stereo, and it had been my plan then to finish up all the targets north of track, including the red-blue filter experiment for the Smythe C, and the dim light stuff. Frank Borman, who'd been asleep, or tried to go to sleep as best she could in that thing, it was a very poor sleep situation, decided that the sleep situation was getting out of hand, and that if we wanted to make our trans-Earth insertion maneuver without burning it in the wrong direction or something, that we better start thinking about sleep and stop thinking about pictures and navigation. Well, the photography actually was of lower priority than the navigation, and that got canceled, so I guess we can't argue that we didn't get our fair shake. But it was unfortunate because we had quite a bit of film on board at this time. Not unfortunate in the sense it was a bad decision, but unfortunate that that the sleep situation happened that way. We did have quite a bit of film. We had not done any of the dim light exposures. They were planned for the, I believe, the end of the 8th revolution. There had been no, maybe I mentioned, maybe I didn't, that after the initial foul-up of the high-speed film, I had elected to not reconfigure the camera until we had one solid pass of nighttime activities where the strip would be taken of the surface in and around Copernicus, observations, good visual observations made in Earthshine, and the remaining film allotted for the things that Dr. Dunkelman and others were interested in. Corona was the diagonal light. But that was canceled. The camera, I did suggest to Mormon, and he accepted the suggestion of running the camera number 1 through the next dayside pass along the 16 millimeter camera, and he was tired to the point of falling over, if you can fall over in 0G, but drifting over or whatever you do. And he wasn't in any particular mood to monkey with the f-stop, so I suggested we run it at some median f-stop and let the photographic guys sweat out the developing situation. And this was sort of a halfway attempt at kind of a backdoor convergent stereo attempt. And he started the camera with the intervalometer, which I'd like to say, I haven't said already, is an excellent little device. It worked superbly and took a tremendous busy work requirement off the crew. I think that if we didn't have that device, you'd not have any vertical strip photography that made much sense. Anyway, he ran the camera from terminator to terminator as best as we can determine from looking at the film, and with it the 16 millimeter camera.
That's Rev 9 now?
So I think it was Rev 8 or 9. I don't remember. Dick. Prior to falling into kind of a fitful sleep there right towards the end, I was able, from my sleep station, to look out window number 4 and get a reasonably good view of the, though limited, good view of the lunar surface at the far side terminator, which was about the best view I got the whole flight. Unfortunately, I had trouble keeping more than one eye open at a time. But I did get a pretty good view of the area around the crater called America. And up until this time had not seen anything that I could say was of a truly volcanic nature in the highlands, and I was primed for looking for something that to comment on or to photograph that would give us some clue as to what kind of volcanic activity might be going on in the Terra. And after a brief observation in this crater, I must say that there were some features down there, and were also fortunately recorded on the some of the strip photography that looked to me very different than the general pulverized, churned-up nature of this highlands area. And I guess it would be only conjecture to say that it's volcanic, but if I had to bet, I'd sure bet that.